Hi, everyone. We're going to get started right on time because we have a lot of content to cover today. We have a really special guest today. We're really excited for this presentation. And Dale Bertrand has been a content marketing and SEO specialist to Fortune 500 companies and venture-backed startups around the world for 2 decades. His clients include global brands such as Citizen Watch, Ministry of Supply, MakerBot, Raymond Whale, and Bulova. He applies his graduate school work in artificial intelligence to search engine marketing. Dale speaks at industry conferences and leads corporate training events. He has trained marketing professionals from TripAdvisor, Microsoft, HubSpot, Digitas, and Procter & Gamble. Dale has a BS and MS degrees in computer engineering from Brown University. And for those of you that haven't signed up, please, as members, please do so. And today we have a lot of content, so we're going to just power through the content with Dale. And if we have a few minutes, we can get to them at the end, but we encourage you to connect offline with Dale to get your questions answered.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. So I wanted to, there's a bunch of people on here today. Before I dive into it, we're going to be talking about marketing to humans, and today's going to be all about crafting content marketing strategy and SEO strategy and how they work together. There's a chat box, so I'd love to see questions in the chat box if anybody has any that they would like to ask during the presentation. Right now, before we get started, I'd love for you guys to locate the chat box and let me know what kind of product and service do you sell? Is it a physical product? What is it? Is it a service? Is it software, security software, managed IT services? Could you guys plug that into the box and the chat box? I see somebody who's selling a podcast, healthcare software, data science solutions, sounds like software to me. Oh, well, consulting and software. Healthcare services. Okay, this helps me a lot. Thank you guys. And then I want to know next on here, just whether you guys are beginner, intermediate, or expert with content marketing and SEO. If you're just getting started, say like beginner. If you've done some intermediate, if you're an expert, then I want to talk to you because I want to learn from you, and put expert in there. All right, so it seems like we've got a bunch of beginners, a bunch of intermediates, kind of half and half between the beginner and the intermediate. So I think you guys are going to get a bunch out of it. So thank you all for helping me understand where you are at with content marketing. I'm going to dive into it. Like we said, we have a lot of content today, so I might talk a little bit fast. You'll have my email, you'll have my contact information, reach out. I love talking about this stuff. So if we miss your burning question, please reach out to me afterwards. Quickly, my background, I've worked at the intersection of technology and marketing my entire career. I studied AI in grad school. We were building a search engine back then, but realized that optimizing for Google and building content was where my career was going to be at. I built a computer for a supercomputer for the NSA. That's a story that's best told over a beer, probably after COVID. So I've been working on digital marketing strategy for the last 12 years, and I founded an agency, Fire and Spark, where we work with a bunch of clients. What we're going to talk about today is SEO and content strategies. So basically, we're going to start with like, what does a successful campaign look like? And then what's a typical content team structure? Like, how do you make this happen? And then conversion paths, which is important for figuring out strategy. And then how SEO's changed, and then marketing. Then we're going to talk about content marketing strategies. So clicking on here. So we also want to answer questions, right? Like typical questions I get when I do a workshop like this is, what does a successful campaign look like? How has SEO changed? How do SEO and content marketing work together? What does content marketing look like if you have limited resources? How do all of the different content marketing activities fit together? How should you work with writers? And how long does it take to see results? What I'd love to know from you guys back in the chat is, are there any other burning questions where you came here today wanting to know something specific, and I could help you out by making sure that we land or we at least address a burning question out there? Going once, going twice, if there's any burning questions anybody came here with. I don't see anything, but plug it into the chat if you come up with something, and we'll make sure that it gets addressed. Quick diversion here. I always have my kids in my presentations quickly. Super proud of my daughter because she was one of the first girls to join Boy Scouts in Boston. And then my son did an awesome presentation for his science fair project. The question was, is it better to buy gumballs or sell gumballs? And it turns out the answer is sell gumballs, but he did the math. We have a question, a burning question that came in here, which was how to engineer virality. The answer is you can't. It's really about process and making sure that you do enough activity and you have enough of the right content that maybe something will hit. And then when it comes to like what content needs to be brought to the professional to help with us. I'm not sure I understand the question, but send it to me afterwards and I can help answer it. So what does success look like with SEO and content marketing? So before 2020, when we were talking about like SEO, we were thinking about like keyword targeting and building a lot of content and then doing a lot of backlinking. But nowadays the content has to actually be useful. Google's measuring engagement with our content, so it needs to be high quality. It needs to be like actually answer people's questions and be useful to them. And then we need to do promotion and syndication. So we a lot of times we think about content, publish it on our blog, build it and they will come. That doesn't work. And then you need authority, especially in spaces that are competitive. And in B2B, that's true for a lot of software spaces out there and consulting and professional services. And then on the consumer side, like almost everything is competitive. And authority, as far as Google's concerned, is backlinks, but it also is your online reputation and mentions and content partnerships and stuff like that. But we do need to think about authority nowadays. So content strategy in brief. Like a lot of what we're going to talk about is building the right content. So you're doing your research, you understand what your customers' needs are and how they're doing their research online and what they're looking for. And then when it comes to authority and reputation, we're building out positive signals like backlinks and mentions and high quality content. And then for technical SEO, like a lot of people who are doing SEO are focused on the technical side. It's not necessary to do a ton of technical work if you're on a modern CMS like WordPress or Shopify. So we talk about minimum viable technical SEO. And then promotion in watering holes. So this is understanding the customers that you're going after. Where do they hang out online? Where are they looking for information? Everybody's using Google to find information, so that's a no-brainer. But what forums are they on? What email lists? What conferences do they attend? Those watering holes are important to find because that's how we're going to position this content in front of them. So we do want to have a process where we're setting our objectives, like leads generated, and then setting our KPIs, which would be a measurement in Google Analytics. What our tactics going to be, email, content syndication, whatever that is. Execute the campaign, measure outcomes, and then optimize. So we're in a feedback loop where we're improving going forward. Process is important because we don't want to just do a one-off piece of content, and we do want to get better as we go. So if we're running a successful content campaign, and the example I have here is my son and I are building a gaming machine. So we're spending a lot of time at Micro Center here in Cambridge. And I went online, I was looking for the new GeForce graphics card. And I found I was looking for gaming graphics cards. And a video came up about building a Minecraft gaming PC, and it was published by NVIDIA. They just came out with the new GeForce RTX 3080 graphics card. This was very effective content for them because this is how I discovered this new graphics card. And the benefits of a successful content campaign for the brand would be raising awareness. Like, I didn't know anything about this graphics card. And then also starting sales conversations. So, I'm going to go to their website, raise my hand, ask a bunch of questions before I purchase. And then building trust, like the fact that they've got such a built out presence, and this video was super helpful. Now I trust them, and I believe this is probably the brand I should purchase. And then generating search traffic. So the content that they're generating is showing up in YouTube and in Google. And that's visibility that's going to get them traffic to their website and to their videos. And then also a successful content campaign is going to unlock more channels than just organic on Google, like more than just search engines. Like when you're building content, it's useful for SEO and Google organic, but it's also useful for email and during the sales process where you're talking to a sales prospect and you need to send them a case study or an article or a white paper that you've written on a topic. And then it's going to be useful for your paid advertising too, because you can send some paid traffic to these content pieces. So there's so many different types of marketing that are unlocked when you're writing like high quality, useful content that's targeted towards your customers and it addresses a pain point that your customers have. Another example is a brand, Zayas. They're a software company. They sell marketing software in Boston. They're one of my clients. I can't take credit for everything that they do because I've really been amazed at how they've moved forward. But they're doing it all of the above in terms of useful content for marketers, like how-to style content, but also videos where they're unpacking marketing campaigns that brands are running. And this is all like educational content for marketers. And that's their target. They're a software company, but that's their target. So another thing about a successful campaign is that you're doing a number of different marketing activities like content, you're publishing content on your website, but you're also syndicating it. So this could be out on like industry websites, conference websites, things like that. You're also doing email and you're doing paid advertising and you're doing social. So it's B2B, a lot of that social is going to be on LinkedIn, but there's also Twitter, Facebook, and other social channels. Maybe not TikTok if you're B2B, but if you're working on the B2C side, then yes, it might be TikTok. But when you're running a successful campaign, all of these channels are working together and we're in a 1 + 1 = 3 situation where the channels are amplifying each other and you're getting much more benefit than you would be if you were just doing email campaigns or if you were just writing content and publishing it on your website. Next. So we won't go into this into detail, but once we understand who our customers are, what their pain points are, where their watering holes are, and what type of content they consume, then there's a lot of different types of content that we could create. There's a whole world of content. One thing that I'll add to this is not only do you want to understand the right content for your customers that you're targeting, but also for your organization, especially if you're small or you have limited resources. You might have subject matter experts internally who are good at doing video or they like writing white papers. If that's the case, then go for it. Like that's the type of content that you need to be writing. And to be quite honest with you, like generating some content is better than no content. So even if you do your research and you find out that your target customers are looking for videos, if you've got subject matter experts that like writing articles, I'd still go after the articles because that's what's going to actually get done. So make sure that you're considering that too. So when you're working with writers, this is not one of our writers, but she looks like one of our writers. So I kept her in the presentation. But when you're looking to work with writers, sometimes you can work with subject matter experts internally that'll write everything, sometimes not. A lot of this depends on the resources you have, whether your experts are able to write. And then also, like, is it possible to hire somebody outside your organization who can write the type of content that you need? But when you're working with writers, hire more than one because they may or may not work out. We love to train more than one at the same time and then see who ends up working out at the end of the day. Build training materials. So if you train a writer on a phone call, record it because you're going to have other writers that you're going to want to train or maybe internal people that you're going to want to train. Ask writers for pitches. This is important. Like if the idea for a specific piece of content is coming from one of your writers instead of you, you're going to get a better piece of content. So when I hire writers, I always say, here's generally what we want to write about. Here's a set of keywords that we want to hit. You come back to me with some pitches for articles that you think you should write, and then I'll choose. And if I choose one of the pitches that came from my writer, I'm going to get a much better piece of content because it was their idea. The other thing is we write content briefs. So these are usually one page with an outline where we're saying this is what we want the topic to be. This is the form it's going to take, like an article or a video or whatever. And here's the outline. We like doing content briefs with outlines because it means we're going to get what we expect from the writer, but also it allows the writer to interview one of our subject matter experts. So if we give the writer the outline will go to one of our experts in-house and interview them on each of the bullet points in the outline. And the writer will take notes, and then we just know that's how we extract expertise from our subject matter experts. And the other thing is set deadlines. Everybody needs deadlines, but even if you trust them or you don't have an internal deadline, writers need deadlines. And like I said, interviewing subject matter experts, having the writers interview subject matter experts is a great way to get the expertise from your in-house subject matter experts without having to ask your in-house experts to write articles. So next year. So takeaways from here, like your content must be useful. You're going to have to promote it. Don't just put it up on your website and expect people to find it. You need a process to be successful if you're going to do more than just one-off pieces of content. Content unlocks a lot of marketing channels, and content tactics will complement each other and amplify your results if you're doing more than one of these activities and they're working in cooperation in a coordinated fashion. And choose the content types that your customers want to consume. And what I added to that is also what your organization is good at, because that's what means it's going to actually get done. So what should your content team look like? I want to go through some typical scenarios, and I'm going to start with my agency because I think it's a good case study. So Fire and Spark, we're an SEO and content marketing agency. We specialize in e-commerce SEO. That's the consumer side of our business. And then with B2B, we do more like content marketing and also SEO. So we have me, I'm the subject matter expert. I write content, I craft the high level positioning for the agency, and I think about messaging. How are we going to talk about what we do? And then I build the personas. Like I really build out like who are we going after within these organizations. Right now we're going after Melanie Martin. That's our persona. We made that name up, but she's a fictional marketing manager, or sorry, e-commerce manager at an e-commerce brand selling direct to consumer. We have Jessica on our team. She's in the audience for this webinar. Hi, Jessica. She develops marketing strategy and processes and messaging and calls to action, and she nurtures content partnerships. She's full-time on content when I don't have her distracted with something else. We have Kainoa. He happens to be a Harvard intern, which is why I called that out based on the audience for this workshop. He's working with us full-time while he's taking a semester off from Harvard. And he works on managing our email marketing. He manages my LinkedIn account when we're doing promotion and talking to people. And he manages correspondence with content partners, like guests on our events. And he also writes, like he does a really good job prepping me for events so I can just show up. And then we have Jen. She's a web designer on our team. She's part-time, so she'll maybe do 5-10 hours a week. And then we have Ben on our team, who's a web developer, and he's also part-time. So he'll do 5 hours a week posting articles on our blog and building web pages that we specify and designing PDFs. So right now, the way our content team works, and we're a professional services firm. We're a 10-person team. So we're pretty heavy on content marketing. We have 2 FTEs assigned to it. The reason why we're heavy on it is because that's what we do and it works for us. So we're able to generate 3 qualified leads for our services a week with the content marketing machine that we have for our agency. Now, keep in mind here, like I know that not everybody on this call is going to have the resources for 2.5 full-time people doing content marketing. So I have an example where I'm considering low resources. This is kind of the low end of the spectrum for people that I work with, where you might have 4 hours a month for one of your principals, your founder, one of your subject matter experts to work on content. And what's going on is that person might spend 2 hours writing a blog article once a month. And then you'll publish it on your site. You'll send it out by email if you have a list. That's going to be not so effective if you have a small list, but it can be very effective if you end up having a big list. And then also posting it on your social and your LinkedIn. And then you're using the articles that you write as a part of your sales process. They might be case studies, they might be white papers, but when you're in the middle of a sales conversation, you're looking at the content you've written in the past and you're seeing if any of it can be useful. So the type of results you would see is you're getting a little bit of search traffic from Google, and you're getting some effectiveness and maybe some leads and conversations generating from email, but that depends on how big your email list is. And same thing on LinkedIn, like it depends on how active you are on LinkedIn and how big your following is. And then your content would definitely be useful for sales. Like if you're in this situation, I would say at the least, like write something every month so that you could use it as a part of the sales process. And you're building up this library of content that you've created that just becomes more and more useful over time when you're having sales conversations. Then next, I'm calling it the mid-range of resources, where you've got 20 hours a month total to commit to content. Here, you might be writing 2 useful blog articles, and maybe you're doing a webinar every month, something like that. And this might be one of the principals at your organization and an intern, or maybe you have somebody on staff who's dedicating half of their time to content marketing. In this scenario, you're publishing on your site, but you're also doing syndication. So you've got enough time here to have some conversations with industry publications, websites, conferences, things like that. And you're not just publishing on your website, you're also syndicating elsewhere. And you're doing more email marketing. So maybe it's not just sending out your blog posts, but you can also do some kind of newsletter, look at the industry trends and send that type of useful information out. And then you're not just doing social and LinkedIn. You can also do some paid ads if you have more time. So you could be on Facebook or Google ads. Maybe they're paid LinkedIn ads, something like that. And then you're still posting on social and LinkedIn. If you're B2B, LinkedIn's a great channel. We do organic social, which is free. We publish on LinkedIn. Then you could also experiment with paid ads. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. And then you're once again using your articles during the sales process. But if you have more time, you're in this kind of mid-range of resources, I would say once a month, you're taking a look at your analytics, because you want to understand what articles you've posted are doing the best. So you can optimize the type of content and the topics that you're going to target going forward. So here, when you have more resources, you're going to do better when it comes to organic traffic. You're going to get more traffic from Google and search engines to your website because you're putting more resources into content. Email is going to be more effective because you're doing more of it. LinkedIn is going to be more effective because you're doing more of it. Like I said, I have an intern that helps me with my LinkedIn. I just wouldn't have time to be chatty on LinkedIn. We get clients on LinkedIn for sure, but somebody needs to be LinkedIn there. Somebody needs to be chatty there. And also, it's not okay to just be chatty on LinkedIn. You have to have content to talk about, which is the reason why LinkedIn is actually a content strategy. And then paid campaigns are generating some leads, and you've got even more useful content for sales. And once again, like this is the level where your content is unlocking other channels. People come to me and they say like, oh, Dale, should we be doing LinkedIn? I'm like, heck yeah, because it's working for us. And so they'll go on LinkedIn and they'll have some conversations and they don't understand why it's working. The reason why it's not working is because they don't have content to talk about. Or you might be in this higher resources. So maybe you have 2 FTEs that you can put towards this. Maybe you have a content marketer, or maybe you have half-time subject matter expert and 3 other employees that can really put a lot of energy to your content marketing. Now you're writing like 4 useful pieces a month. Maybe it's 2 blog articles and 1 big PDF or white paper. That could be very effective if you're hitting the right topics for your organization and you're doing some kind of promotion. You might be doing 1 or 2 events per month. So this could be a webinar for your audience, or you're on a panel. I'm on an SEO panel next month for a software company in my space. You can also, if you have these resources, you can target multiple personas, multiple verticals. So imagine you've got software that's useful in the healthcare space and the manufacturing space. It's going to be really hard to go after both of those at the same time with less resources, because you want that content to be targeted so you're speaking the language of that industry. So you would need more resources to go after multiple verticals. And then at this level, you're able to publish on your website and do syndication on industry sites and do some paid placement. This is where you're writing some articles and you're paying, like there's a lot of pay to play outlets in pretty much every industry. So you can imagine that you're paying to have your content published on some websites and going out to their email list or something like that. And then for email marketing, you might have multiple lists. So I have a list that targets e-commerce people that have come to our e-commerce events. And then I have another list that targets people who've come to any of our content or SEO events. So at this level of resources, you can target multiple email lists. And then you're ramping up your spend with all the paid channels. You're getting even more chatty on social. And the reason why is because you have more content and more events to talk about. When we publish a piece of content, we send it to people who we think would care about it on LinkedIn. So that's just allowing us to be more chatty and eventually generate more leads. And then also when we're doing more events, either I'm on a panel on somebody else's event or we're hosting our own events, that's content. And we can reach out to people, everybody who registered for the event. I'll reach out to them on LinkedIn and I'll say, hey, I saw you registered for my event last week. Let's connect. And then when they connect, I'll ask them what they thought. And every once in a while that turns into a client. And when I have an intern, running my LinkedIn, that's more than worth it. And then also when you're at this level, you're doing possibly weekly performance reporting, not the monthly, because it is important to figure out what's working and what's not. And then, at this level, you're really at this 1 + 1 = 3, where you're doing paid, you're doing social, you're doing LinkedIn, and you're generating content to support all of that. And it's amplifying. So it's a 1 + 1 = 3 situation. Any questions about this, throw it into the chat, just because I'm going through this really quickly in terms of, resources and different types of scenarios and what you had been doing. If anybody—
Hey Dale, there's a couple questions in the chat, but maybe we'll leave 5 minutes at the end to go through them.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So in terms of the content team structure, like, who's doing what, if you're at the low end of the resources, you've got your in-house principals writing content and posting it. If you're at the mid-range where it's like, half a person doing this stuff, you've still got the in-house experts writing content, but you've got somebody else half-time or a little less than half-time who's doing the content marketing. So posting content, promoting it, and just running the process as a project manager. And then if you're at the higher end where maybe you've got 2 FTEs doing this stuff, then you've got a full-time content marketer who's writing content, researching opportunities and promoting content. But then you have an admin who's basically pushing buttons and tools, setting things up, corresponding with people. I have help when we do events, scheduling like a meet and greet with potential guests on our webinars, stuff like that. So one thing I was curious about here, and people, you guys can throw it in the chat, is just in terms of like where you guys are at in terms of resources. Are you guys low, medium, or high in terms of the resource spectrum that I'm talking about for your organization? And just throw it into the chat, like low, medium, or high. I see one low, and I think that, and I see a medium. So we've got one person out there who's got more going on. And then we've got a high, which is awesome. They've got a lot of resources, and a medium. So very interesting. We've got equal, and I wasn't expecting this. We've got equal distribution, a little skew towards the lower and the medium side of things in terms of where people on this call are at. So thank you, everybody. Takeaways, choose the structure that fits your organization. Obviously, the more resources, the better, but everybody's got limits. Use your SME's time wisely, so the experts in-house. Optimize for the most exposure. So whatever you're doing, however you're using your resources, the content you're building is really a means to an end. So you want to make sure that when you are generating content, you're putting your resources towards promoting it, being chatty, doing whatever paid makes sense. So really optimize for the most exposure that you can possibly get, and build a time to work your process. So you're gonna need a process. So work the process. So conversion paths. When we're thinking about content, we want to understand, like, content's a means a means to an end. And the end is that we want to get people to buy on our website or submit a lead, whatever that ends up being. So how does SEO and content marketing work together? Like, SEO is a discovery mechanism, and online it ends up being the most important discovery mechanism. And yes, you're hearing that from an SEO and content marketing guy, but it's free traffic, it's insanely valuable. And search engines are basically how people use the web. When I go to the web, I open Google, I search for what I want, and then I go to somebody's website. That's just what I do. And that's pretty much what everybody does. So SEO is going to be an important channel, no matter, I mean, unless you sell somebody something nobody knows about, or the people you're going after just don't use the web for whatever reason. But there are other discovery mechanisms out there, like email or paid ads or LinkedIn or social, or direct outreach, like just reaching out directly to the companies you want to work with. So the content is really to engage people and then convert them. So we need content in order to be more engaging on all of these channels. Like, Google's not going to find us if we don't have content. Like, our emails are going to stink if we don't have content to promote, all of that. And then the content itself should convert. So where your customers are going to come from, they're going to come from referrals, events, or ads, or all that kind of stuff. So when you need content marketing the most is when you have a long sales cycle, like my client that sells industrial water filters. That's what this is a photo of. And when you have a high value sale, we have a client that sells manufacturing equipment. So it's just the customer is going to want to see content before they write those checks. They're like 6 and 7 figure checks. And then education might be required. So if I'm going to purchase enterprise security software, I've got a general understanding. Maybe I had a break-in and that's why, but I don't know what intrusion detection is. I don't know what lateral movement is. Like, I'm going to need some education before I'm going to sign one of those contracts. And the best way to do it is to have some content that I can trip over when I'm searching online, trying to understand more about the attack that we just experienced. And then also some content that you're going to send me during the sales process. So how's the content going to convert visitors? It's either going to be a direct conversion where somebody lands on a blog post and then there's a call to action at the bottom that says, hey, do you want to talk about our products or services? Fill out this form and we'll give you a call. Or it's email marketing. Like, they might leave their email address. That might be a call to action. Or retargeting, where we hit them up with targeting ads from like AdRoll or Facebook retargeting or Google remarketing. Or they might leave a phone number and we call them, or it might be just be a visit where we raise some awareness. Now we've got some mind share with a new visitor, and they come back. They come back either on their own or through one of these other channels. But eventually, what we want to be doing with every touch, especially if it's a long sales cycle, is just move them closer to the sale with the content. Calls to action are important. So this is an example of Zeus, what they have on their blog. They're one of our clients. They have a blog article which is about generating content for your customers at every stage of the customer journey and how customer journeys have changed online. So the title of this piece of content is "Pay Attention, Your Customer Journey Has Changed." And then there's a whole bunch of, they wrote a lot of good content underneath it. And then at the bottom of the article is a call to action that says, learn more about how Zeus can help your brand by developing relevance across the entire customer journey. What I like about this call to action is that it's relevant to the content that they just read. And they probably found this article by going to Google and searching for information about customer journeys. And then they clicked on it, they read a bunch of good information, and now I'm offering something that's aligned with what they just learned, and even more importantly, their original intent when they went to Google and searched. So we always want to make sure, like on every page, and then what this means is you'll end up with a number of different calls to action on your website, and you're going to try to align them. So takeaways, like your conversion paths might not be direct. Content is useful, especially for long sales cycle, and make sure you're crafting compelling content. Compelling CTAs. So now I'm going to go a little bit into SEO strategies. And Joe, make sure you give me like a 10-minute and a 5-minute warning when we reach the end of our time. Because for some reason I didn't bring my watch today. So with SEO, our goal is to increase our organic visibility. So we want to get in front of the right customers. We want to accelerate the path to purchase. So we want to generate more sales, more traffic, more organic leads. The technical approach to SEO, which we no longer spend a lot of time on, is when we were optimizing our websites, doing things like technical audits and guest posting to get backlinks and optimizing H1 tags. Like, it just doesn't work anymore. Google's working really, really hard to make technical manipulations with their AI algorithms just not work anymore. They're kind of useless. So if you're on a modern CMS like HubSpot, WordPress, Shopify, set up your website and then move on to content and building authority with backlinks, reputation, and all that kind of stuff. And the reason why is because Google's shifting to AI algorithms. They used to be rules-based. Now they're more AI. This is the kind of stuff that I studied in grad school. So it allows Google to really understand the context in which like your customers are searching for the information that you're putting out there, and empathize with them so that Google can show them the right thing, not just a text search. I mean, Google used to look for the phrase you're searching on pages on the web and match things up that way. The way we know that is we're able to look at Google's patents and understand how they're using AI this way. And Google's building out dedicated hardware. These are what we call them like application specific integrated circuits. So these are like application specific hardware to run their AI algorithms. And Google's also using a panel of humans. So these are people who rate websites for the sole purpose of training their AI and for measuring the quality of different variants of their algorithm. And they're using a number of different AI algorithms. We're not going to go into detail, but they're using AI for understanding queries and crawling the web and indexing, and then also for delivering results. So what your SEO consultant's not going to tell you is like the long list of like technical changes they're asking you to make. Like, most of that stuff just doesn't need to be done. So I would skip the technical audit, move to content and authority building. So Google's AI is making technical manipulations obsolete. You're going to ignore your SEO consultant if they're asking you to do mostly technical stuff. And you got to optimize for humans, not search engines. And the reason why is because we're 20 years into like Google, and Google's like really good at what they do now. So the type of content that you want to generate. So this is a B2C example, but I love this example because it's an entrepreneur that I know, Melissa Clayton. She runs a jewelry brand. Her jewelry brand is targeted towards moms. So it's not just jewelry. And she sells engraved jewelry. So the jewelry is going to have your child's name or birth date on it. So that's a really, really competitive space. The way she was able to build authority with Google was around her branding. So I'm going to play a 30-second video here, not super long.
Tiny Tags has become its own village, and I often think that it's been a way for me to take all of my emotions about my own mom, my own journey of motherhood, and to channel into this very tangible thing to connect and support other women. We all need each other, and moms need moms, and women need women, and we're here to support and uplift each other because every child deserves to be celebrated, and we're just honored to be part of telling their story. Over the years, I've learned so much from Tiny Tags and our community of moms. I've learned that children need a present mom, not a perfect one, and how incredibly precious time is.
So the reason why I showed that video was to give you an idea of like what her brand is about, and I am going to show a B2B example. But her brand is about a lot more than just jewelry that's inscribed. It's really about the journey of motherhood and celebrating like just the gift of having children. And based on that, she's been able to build a community of moms and sell a lot of engraved jewelry. So she produces content around challenging topics like complications during pregnancy, and a rainbow baby, which is when you have trouble giving birth and you have trouble getting pregnant and staying pregnant, and then you finally have a child. And then the grief and loss associated with a hysterectomy. So this is how she's building her brand and building her community. Now, the important thing is that what she's seeing with this content is engagement that Google notices. And she's getting authority and she's getting rankings because this community of moms is engaging with the content. And Google's able to measure that. It's super important. So her brand's mission is a force multiplier when it comes to content and SEO. And her market research is facilitated by this community she built around the brand. She's generating content that Google needs, so that's why she's getting traffic. She's telling these compelling motherhood stories. Those are generating engagement. One of the ways Google measures engagement is if somebody's searching for something like a Mother's Day gift, and they click on her website, they're going to stay on the website. They're not going to go back to Google and click on some other website, which is what Google is measuring. So that engagement is really important. And she's getting links from like-minded influencers. And those links are allowing her to once again build authority and move up the rankings. And then she's using the content to build authority for her social campaigns and her paid channels. So I want to give some more examples of this mission-driven SEO that's working nowadays. The first two are B2B examples. So one of them is one of our manufacturing clients. So I work with Zverse. They started as a on-demand manufacturer, and then they moved into the software space, building software for manufacturers. When COVID hit, they decided that they were going to build products. They were going to build PPE for nurses. The mission around the products that they build was they wanted to launch a campaign to get 10 million face shields and other PPE products to nurses. And they launched this in March as soon as COVID hit. When we promoted this campaign, it was called like the 10 million shields campaign. We were able to get picked up in media, in advocacy groups around like essential workers, and then the websites for nursing associations and boards of nursing. Like, just worked really well because the SEO and content campaign had a purpose behind it. And then the other B2B example is a company that sells materials. They sell materials to jewelers. So what they have is a grant where they give a grant every year to multiple like emerging jewelry brands. And what they did was they moved all of their marketing budget to promoting this grant. And they were able to use the grant to initiate conversations with the jewelers that they want to sell to, but also to get noticed by Google because they're getting backlinks to their grant and their website. They're getting content pieces, they're getting engagement, and they're getting partnerships. So Google sees the partnerships around the grant. Other examples in the B2C space, iFixes is a publisher that publishes information about how to fix consumer electronics. Their brand is very closely aligned with Right to Repair, which is something we're voting on today in Massachusetts. So make sure you get out there and vote. But they've been able to generate content and engagement and backlinks and partnerships based on their Right to Repair content that they're very closely aligned with. And a client that we work with, Share Money, they support immigrant advocacy. With them, we've done scholarships for immigrants, and then we've also done immigration stories. And we've been able to align with advocacy groups, law firms, and get engagement, content, and partnerships and all that kind of stuff. So why should your SEO and content have a mission? Because then it allows you to go beyond keyword targeted content. You create the type of content that's going to get linked, and you can generate partnerships and get other organizations to help you build your content. It'll better connect with your audience, and you can partner with like-minded individuals. These might be bloggers or influencers or industry groups that care about the same issues that you care about. And then you might be able to do outreach around your mission, not your content, and most importantly, not around your service or your product. This is really important. So if I wanted to do promotion and I sell a service, I sell SEO services, I sell content marketing services. Nobody wants to hear from me on LinkedIn if I'm promoting my, like, hey, you want to talk about my SEO services? No, I don't. Go away. You're blocked. So instead, what we do is we have like amazing content that's like useful, and we'll promote that. And most of the time that works, but you can do better. Imagine if you have a mission, like there's a law or a regulation in your space that you're trying to get overturned. I can promote that instead. So I'm not promoting my services. I'm saying, hey, there's this dangerous law. It's going to put half of us out of business. I know you care about it. We're writing an article about how it's going to hurt people in our industry. Can we interview you for it? That's a much better way to approach your SEO and content marketing strategy. You're going to get far. That's what we do. And you can also do good in the world. It must be authentic. So the type of mission-driven content that you can create, I call it citable content. So imagine just using this example on the B2B side, where there's a regulation in your space that you want to get behind because everybody you sell to cares about it. We would create citable content by doing interviews of people affected by the regulation. We would put together some proprietary data around maybe on our platform, or I work with IT security companies, so they have data around security breaches that we can use for that type of content. But this is citable content. We want like-minded individuals, advocacy groups, unions, boards of nursing, whatever it is in your space, industry trade groups, influencers. We want them to cite our content in order to advance their cause. And that's the important thing. So we're the ones generating the citable content, the interviews, the data-driven pieces around proprietary data, or surveys that we're doing of our customers, or a policy piece or a manifesto. Just this morning, I was working with a client putting together a manifesto around how the apparel industry does not cater well to shorter men. And we're going to use that as a content piece to build relationships. And then opinion pieces, those can work well. So I've given you guys a bunch of examples. So advocacy around the right to repair. I did one around a law that required lead testing for all children's products. So that would have put small manufacturers of children's products out of business. We have the other one around PPE, and that one, the messaging there was really around like the COVID crisis has taught us that we finally understand that we need to treat essential workers as essential. And we did all this type of content around that. And we're reaching out to anybody we think would care with our citable content.
We're at the 10-minute mark, Dale.
All right, cool. Thank you for that. And then we're doing mission-driven outreach. So we're reaching out to people we think would care. We're looking for links, content partnerships, people we can interview, and ultimately customers. So when we're running one of these mission-driven campaigns, first thing we want to do is choose a purpose that is aligned with your values. It has to be authentic or it's not going to work. So you don't just make up something for marketing. And then you advocate for your position. So figure out like what is our opinion around this issue. Then we're going to build the citable content. Then we're going to connect with like-minded influencers. So takeaways here, I'm going to go through this one quickly so we can get to another section. So over optimization is a waste of time. So we don't want to work too much on the technical optimizations when it comes to SEO. We really want to be focused on content and authority. When you can ignore technical SEO is when you have an average size site, so relatively small, less than 10,000 pages. It's probably everybody on this. And you're using a modern CMS, so don't worry about technical SEO. I'm not going to go too deep into why we care about SEO, but SEO is really valuable. Free traffic, organic. We're getting a lot of organic pickup. So the last slide I'll go through in this section is, remember, we're not building SEO and content campaigns for Google anymore. That ship has sailed now that Google's really good at what they do and their algorithms have kind of reached the tipping point. So instead, when it comes to SEO and content, we're taking more of a human approach where the first thing we're doing is we're focused on empathy, which is doing the customer research. So we understand the context in which our customers are doing their searching and the context in which they are having their sales conversation and doing their research. Then we're looking at presentation, which is for the topics that we care about, the keywords we care about. What is Google showing? Is Google showing how-to articles, information articles, or product pages, or professional services firms' websites, or videos, or what is it? Because we need to be creating that stuff. And then with engagement, our content needs to be engaging. So what is the right format? Does it need to be visual? Does it need to be a tool like calculators I used to build for my financial services clients? And then amplification, this is all about like when you're creating your content, what channels are you going to amplify it in? Remember, the reason why we're focused on content marketing is because we want to achieve this 1 + 1 = 3 amplification. So when we're thinking about the topics and content types we're going to create, do those play nice in email, paid channels, LinkedIn, whatever else we're doing, based on the structure and the resources that we have available to us. And then finally, the big force multiplier is going to be purpose. So nobody wants, I could do all this stuff below here, right? But nobody wants to hear from me in my agency when I send them a message on LinkedIn about SEO and content services. Maybe they want to hear about me when I send out an awesome piece of content. But when I've got a purpose behind what I'm doing related to a conversation that is going on in our space, something that they care about, then they might respond. And there's so many different things that could be about, but purpose is a force multiplier. Joe, how much time do we have? Because I'm probably
just six minutes.
Okay, so if anybody has a question, put it in the chat, and we can possibly unmute some folks if we get there.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions. I mean, there's a question regarding getting ranked for regional versus national SEO and data science consulting. Maybe your opinion on pros and cons about that.
Is the question whether you should do regional or national?
Yeah.
I mean, with SEO, it's so much better if it's national. So I would only do regional or local if there's a reason or there's an advantage to that. I work with some clients that do like manufacturing services, and for them there is an advantage because they can have short lead times, they can hand deliver prototypes, stuff like that. So if you're in a situation where there really is an advantage to serving local clients, then that's going to be an advantage to you. But if not, then I always want to expand nationally because I'm just going to get more traffic, more leads, and there's more customers in the pool.
Great. Another question here from Dina Masri. She's asking, can you please mention how this translates to ASO, App Store optimization as well?
That's tough. App Store optimization is kind of a different animal, where you really have to do the sponsored listings to get at the top. So there's a reason why antitrust litigation was initiated against Google a week ago, because Google and Apple, they own the App Store and it's pay to play in some really awful ways. The way to rank without paying is to have a lot of downloads, to be popular. There are strategies where you optimize for keywords in the title and the description on your page, but those aren't really winning strategies. You kind of have to either be Apple or have a lot of downloads from some other angle. I worked with a client, we released an app 2 summers ago. We did a ton, like we had, maybe $200,000 in budget for a couple months to generate downloads. And we were able to get pretty decent in the App Store during that time because we were getting so many downloads, but it was because we put advertising spend on Facebook towards generating downloads. The other way is to sponsor it on those platforms by writing a check, and that works too. But those are rigged. Those platforms are rigged.
Okay, great. There's a question from Brandon, but you already touched on this regarding what member of the team should work on the inbound marketing. So Brandon, maybe connect offline with Dale if you have a follow-up to that. Another question would be, are you platform agnostic in terms of what CMS to use for the content? What do you recommend? Is it HubSpot? Is it?
I mean, it really doesn't matter, but HubSpot's fine. WordPress is fine. You just want to be on a modern CMS, and there's a lot of them. If you're in e-commerce, then Magento, Shopify, it's fine. So you want to be on a modern CMS, modern theme, so it's responsive and it plays nice and mobile. You might be in a B2B space where your customers just aren't on mobile, so it's not really a big deal. But for most companies, like, you need to be able to play nice on mobile, and you want to make sure your site isn't broken. So, oh geez, unable to connect. Okay, you guys can still hear me?
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, we can see. Yeah,
okay,
we can hear you.
Okay, so not sure what's going on.
We see your desktop there, but that's fine. Maybe the last couple of questions. So I did share the links to, your LinkedIn and Jessica's LinkedIn, and thank you, Jessica, for organizing the session. Is there any resources you recommend? Do you have content on YouTube or videos where we can learn about this? And I think also the question that was asked earlier from Ziying, at what point do we need professional help to engage a firm like yours?
It really, like, if you're at the lower level of resources, then you're going to do better off writing some content in-house. And this is the document that I wrote, which goes into more detail about how we do the different pieces. So you guys can grab this guy. I think it's like 30 pages on just how to do what I do. And if you're in the mid-level, then that's where you want somebody half-time. And that might be somebody existing on your team. It might be a contractor that you work with, or it might be an agency. And then if you're at the higher level of resources, then you're going to have some support in-house, and you're going to want an agency. The real question is, what is the agency doing? Are they doing like the highest level strategy and then you execute? Or maybe they're responsible for a strategy and some execution. And a lot of times it's a mixture of both. So if anybody has that question, I'm happy to talk. And when I have that, so another thing that's important when you're working with an agency is knowledge transfer. So if you have an agency running campaigns for you, there's learnings that are generated in a lot of different places, a lot of different ways. Do you care? Like, do you want to make sure that those learnings are being transferred back to your organization, or you don't care? You just want somebody to run it. But that's a question.
Great. And there's a couple of questions regarding, are you going to share this presentation, or is it all in that link you have there?
It is not all in this link. But if you email me, I'll send it to you. So dale@fireandspark.com. I'll send you these PDF, and you'll get some bonus slides because I didn't get to everything.
Awesome. I don't see any more questions, and we're right at time. Really appreciate it. It was really great. So many great comments, very insightful and helpful. Regina, any closing words?
This was just fantastic, Dale, and I wish there were more minutes in an hour, because I know we could have gone much longer. So thank you so much, and I am sure we'll be talking.
All right, cool. Well, thank you very much for having me. It's a fun conversation.